I'm going to wait to really get going until some of that stupid little ad stuff from Ustream goes through. Other than that, I see we got a few people on here anyway. Sent out the Twitter update. Hopefully we get a couple more on. If not, got a few people we're used to seeing. So, everybody hear me out there? Everybody's probably still watching the ad yet. Let's see if we got audio or not here. Looks like the audio is coming through. Does the book go into great detail? On certain stuff, yes. It covers matting. It covers some of the other things when it comes to picture frames. Also, it also goes into the different profiles. There goes the ad. I'll wait a sec here. I'll cover that in a minute then. Yeah, Ustream's ad. That part kind of sucks, but like I said, what can I do? It's free. Well, hopefully the ad's done for you too, Slice. The book, it is a rather, it's a thinner book, but some of the stuff, certain frames it covers pretty detailed. Some of the profiles, how to use the router bits to make different profiles, and different ways to tweak the angles if it's not going quite right. There's a couple of more, I'd say, contemporary kind of frames, not the standard 45 corners and some different things that way that it goes pretty detailed in. The matting and some of the other parts of doing picture frames is not quite as detailed as I'd like to see, but it covers it enough that if you wanted to, you could at least do it. So that's how to make picture frames. It's a nice little book. It adds a few different things to think about when you're doing some of the frames, and it's kind of nice. So we'll be giving that away later, and we also have a Gorilla Glue prize pack to give away too. What's all in there? There's the Gorilla standard type glue, the urethane stuff, which there's the Gorilla Wood Glue, there's Gorilla Super Glue, Gorilla Tape, there's a t-shirt, a few other things that are in there too, plus they mix it up now and then, so that's this month. We're going to be doing that once a quarter like we have before. Other than that, what's coming up is in February I will be putting out a poll for which book should we review in March. In February, I got a chance to talk to Carol Rothman again, her new Wooden Boxes book. It's actually pretty cool. There's a few of them that are similar to some of her wooden bowls, and with the stacked ring idea, there are some really different things out there too. If you look like on the cover here, that is not a ribbon. It's actually made out of wood, and she goes through pretty detailed how to make those on the scroll saw, and it's actually pretty cool. If you haven't been to her blog, a lot of the stuff is out there too. We had a chance to talk a second time. About an hour-long conversation I'll be releasing later this month. So, hey Chris, how you doing? Yeah, that's going to be the giveaway for February. We'll be giving that away at the beginning of March. So it's a nice one. Actually, I was just harassing Chris about a carving he's doing out there. So the book this month, the picture frame one, and the other prize. Actually, I'm going to do the pick a winner for the book, I think, right now. Let's see what we can come up with my goofy little program here. Let's see, T. Husey, I think that's Ted if I remember right. Let me check that out real quick here. That's the How to Make Picture Frames book. I will be sending you an email, and then I'll get your information sent back to me after I send you the email. We'll get you a copy of that sent out. We'll do the Gorilla Glue, easy for me to say, right? Gorilla Glue prize pack later today. I don't know if I might actually just pick somebody in the chat room instead of going off the post for that one. So. Yeah, the Wooden Boxes book is actually pretty cool. It's different. She's got another a box that Carol Rothman did in. Well, I can't remember if it's the Woodcrafts magazine. It's the one of the scroll saw type magazines. It's like a box, a braided loaf of bread. It looks like it's kind of cool, and a couple other ones are. Well, the polyurethane glue is just part of it, Chris. They've got wood glue and some CA glue and Gorilla Tape, which is like duct tape on steroids, which duct tape you can use for a whole lot of stuff. Speaking of using duct tape for things, this month I built something to replace using this duct taped piece of cardboard on all my saws, and I don't have them sitting around anymore. I have a sawtill actually hanging on the wall. I'll pan over and show you the start of it. I have to build a drawer for it later. But I had a chance to go up and take a class on saw sharpening from Mike Seamson in Minnesota. And the saw sharpening one, I thought I knew a little bit about saw sharpening before I went up there. Heck, I thought I knew a little bit about saws before I went up there. Just the knowledge that he gives about saws and how to date them and a ton of stuff with them. I had an addiction to saws before, and now I ordered a couple more, and I've got a tenon saw coming, and they're all actually hanging on the wall instead of collecting dust, which is bad because dust collects salt and makes rust. So my saws cut a whole lot better. Most of them have been in the family, either my wife's family or my family, for quite a while, so it's kind of nice to see them be put back to work, and I'm using them a lot more too. I know, I think Chris and I think both of you guys had a part in the Get Woodworking month, or Get Woodworking week this month, didn't you? It was kind of cool for anybody out there who hasn't heard about it. I did a small post. It was kind of cool. It was a Tom Iovino guy down in Florida. If you haven't checked out his blog, tomsworkbench.com, he kind of started a thing to get some of us people who do blogging and babble about woodworking to, one, get in our shops and do something, and kind of inspire some of the people who are thinking about woodworking to just get out there and start doing it. And my post was related to something that I did prior to the Get Woodworking, and I always tried to do that whole, okay, I'm going to work my butt off all week and get down in the shop on the weekend, that whole day on the weekend that always gets filled up with something else. And I said, the heck with it. If I had 5 minutes, I got in the shop, and if I had an hour, I got in the shop. And during that time, I cleaned up the shop, I sharpened my chisels, I built most of the sawtill, a ton of other stuff. And yeah, because that day that you worked your butt off all week for gets filled up with something else. And I did more in 1 week than I usually get done in a month of trying to get a day on the weekend to get it done. And it was nice. I just said, fine, I'm just going to take a couple days and take the time I can and get down there. So yeah, I get in there and then I have to go do something else. That's kind of what I was stuck doing, and just even the 5 minutes here and there. So I came down and said, fine, I got 5 minutes. I'm sharpening a couple of chisels or one chisel, or I started to work on the bed of one plane. It's better than not being down here at all, and that was my part of Get Woodworking as well. Get in there even a little is better than none. Yes, children do seem to take up a little bit of time. They between what they need and what you need to do for them. So what else did anybody else see any of the get Woodworking Week, there was actually quite a few people out there that did some stuff. It was kind of fun to see the different takes on what good woodworking is. Oh, the rocking horse one. Hey, I've seen that one, Chris. That is awesome. Yeah, there's actually some pretty cool stuff out there with, and the Get Woodworking. It was kind of cool to see quite a few people just kind of putting something out there, saying, hey, you don't need the ones that I was interested in, or interested me the most, was some of the people that put out the basic toolkit, just the minimalist thing that you can do to at least start woodworking, and a saw, a couple of chisels, and you didn't have to have a power saw and everything all set up at once. Just anything to start woodworking. At least you're cutting wood. Let's see what else we got going on in the shop here. I actually switched a little bit about the way some of my sharpening works too. Because of my trip up by Mike, I spent the one day in his class about that saw sharpening, and I actually had the next day wasn't a normal class. I wanted to take his class on tuning and sharpening chisels and scrapers and hand planes, and that was going to be the following weekend, and I couldn't make it up there. So Mike offered up a place to crash, and we fixed one of my planes that night, and the next day we sat and worked on hand planes. And I thought they worked good before, and I thought I did okay with them, but they are more like an extension of my arm now. I mean, they are rock solid, sharp, tuned up perfectly, and I'm really happy about it. And if anybody has a chance to go and visit his school and take some time, it was great. Work on your planes. You can bring them here and I'll work on them when I have time. Yeah, I mean, like Chris says, nothing like a well-tuned hand plane. I thought they worked good before, and just the little bit that we did with them. The other nice thing that was kind of fun is we took all of my bench planes that I have, and we spent time and dated them all. The newest one that I have is about 1920 to 1922, and everything else is older than that. And those things work better than any of the new ones I've had. So, yeah, learning the hand tool thing. The more I'm doing with the woodworking, the less I'm doing with the power tools, and the more I'm doing with the hand tools. I really enjoy. I'm never. I mean, I've got a new bandsaw. There's no way I'm ever gonna get rid of that, and I'll never get rid of my table saw. And if it makes me sweat too much, I'll send it through the planer, but I know how to flatten one side better than I ever could before. And I've got a 5.5 that I'm using as my 4-plane, and a 3 and a 4 for my smoothers, and then a 7 for the joiner. And I've got a couple other ones that we mess with for other things. So. Well, I'm gonna slip around to the other side and at least show you the sawtill, what I've started of it. It's nothing fancy, but it was kind of fun and went together quick. Hang on a sec. I got my Japanese saws on the outside and a big miner saw there. I've got a couple of dovetail saws and a carcass saw, and my tenon saw is coming, and the open space on the bottom is where the drawer will be. Yeah, I got the Laguna bandsaw. I picked that up when I sold some old Magic cards that ended up worth more than I thought they were. So I picked up, that was Laguna bandsaw. It's the, I believe you're right, it's the LT14. It's the one with the 14-inch resaw, and I got a resaw king with it too. Yeah, it's that thing. I had a 12-inch jet that I picked up really cheap with gift certificates and stuff for a while, and it worked really nice. I put a Craig fence on it. It worked great for a long time, and it had the same resaw capacity as the big jet, so I just dealt with it, no big deal. And once I cut wood with this one, it's worlds different. This thing cuts through maple like it's butter. I mean, I have no problems at all. Currently, it's nice. You're looking to buy some handsaws. What kind of handsaws are you looking for? Are you thinking about back saws or full the regular handsaws? Bro, just browsing. Where are you finding stuff right now? Any suggestions? You need at least 8. Once you have 8, you'll need 10, and then you'll need a couple more. If you're looking through eBay, one thing I have for a suggestion is be careful when you're bidding out there. The way I found and got a couple of them that I got off of eBay is I put the most I want to spend on what it is out there and let it go. It was in the selection goes back and forth. You say it sucks right now. You'll see nothing, and then you'll see tons of them, and then you'll see nothing. And it goes back and forth a lot. My one dovetail saw, I'll actually show it to you. It's a Windsor, and it's like it's used, but it's hardly used. I mean, I can't say that this thing was ever really used for anything other than somebody might have cut wood with it once. And that dovetail saw, I mean, I looked up to buy it new, is not cheap, and $70 shipped to the house was what I ended up getting it for, because that's what I put on there. That's as most I want to spend, and I said, well, either it goes or it doesn't. I missed out on 3 of them, but I got that one, so. Yeah, like that, the Windsor normally to order them, they're made in Colorado, and I mean, they go upwards of $170 to $200 and some a piece, so I figured, well, that's what I'm putting on it. I either get it or I don't, and if I didn't get it, there'd be another one out there later. My bad axe saw, I mean, that one I bought at Woodworking America, that's not cheap. I've got another Diston back saw, that's about I think it's a 12 or a 14 something. No, that one's got to be a 12. That one I use for, it's kind of my general saw for a bunch of different things, and I've got I think it's a 16 or an 18, I can't remember, but I won one pretty cheap, like $20-30 on eBay, that's coming, and that'll be my tenon saw because it's a little deeper too. TPI, and actually they usually prefer to it as PPI, to points per inch. Usually when you're looking at that, I mean, the more points, usually the finer the cut and the closer to being finished it is. That's why you see dovetail saws with a really high point per inch, and some of the rough, the big, like the bigger hand saws. A lot of those will be a real high, like 8, or some of them are even 7. Those are for breaking down stock more than like a dovetail saw. I mean, you see the fine little teeth on this thing. I mean, that's for a fine cut. So I mean, you want it. I don't want to be messing around with the dovetails if I can get them really close. So. Yeah, I like the way Chris put it in the chat room here. Match TPI to thickness of stock. More points per inch equals slower cut. Yeah, it does too. I mean, you gotta you want to just break stock down to get it out of the garage or get it closer to dimensions so you can start working with your joinery and stuff. And you use a high point count, and it'll break it down quicker too. If you want a smoother cut, it's going to cut slower, but you use a higher points per inch. That's part of why I have so many saws sitting over there too, is some of the stuff that's farthest on that side, other than the great big minor box saw, has a higher points per inch, because that's used. I'll go on that side to break stuff down. The closer I go this way, the closer it is to being a more finished cut, and I'm not going to have to do as much with it, but it's not going to cut as fast either. Yeah, the rake and the cut, the rake and the fleam. Fleam is, if people don't, anybody else that's out there listening to this at any other time, fleam is so if you're looking at it this way, what angle are you beveling your tooth at? And fleam is introduced more on a crosscut saw. Some people put it on their rip saws, and some people say don't put it on their rip saws. It's kind of a personal preference. Some people put a little bit of fleam on a rip saw so it starts easier. The fleam, I guess that, the more fleam there is, the easier it's going to cut, as far as it slices through the wood, because basically all this is the teeth are, the teeth on the saw are a whole bunch of little chisels. And when you have a rip, you're coming down and you're hitting it just like a chisel would, and you're just knocking it out. And you're going with the grain then, so it isn't so bad. When you're going across the grain, you want to have a little bit of fleam, so it slices that wood first. It's kind of like some people, when you use a plow plane, they have a nicker on there, so then it slices that grain before that blade digs in and really messes up the wood. And rake is the angle that this tooth is at. So if it's at a 90, or if it rakes back a little bit, or if it rakes forward. If you can understand, like this has got not a whole lot of rake to it. It's got a little bit of back. So the more rake, at least this is the way Mike explained it to me, is the more rake you're putting on it, the more aggressive the cut is going to be. And the nicest part for me about being able to hand sharpen my saws now is I can adjust that how I want it. So if I want something to cut really fast, I can put some more rake on it. But if I want it to still be able to start, like if I want a rip saw that's really going to nail through it, I can put more rake on it, but introduce a little bit of fleam so it'll still start easier. Actually, I think I'm going to go through a little bit of a saw sharpening thing sometime in the future, and hopefully I can do a little more illustration with that too. So you just pull the trigger and let it cut the wood. Yeah, that is the way the power tools work. But as far as the hand saws go, it's kind of fun to feel that reaction and feel the wood when you're working with stuff. Yeah, actually, and it's right, Chris. When you're looking at circle saw blades or table saw blades or even bandsaw blades, a lot of that stuff, the rake should still be considered, because the more rake you're having, I mean that's an aggressive cut. If you have what they call negative rake, that actually can be used for cutting other things too. Because like negative rake, I know on my on my scroll saw, we have some with negative rake that my dad got, and it'll cut plexiglass without melting it then, because it's not as aggressive when it's going through. But like on I know one of my rip saws, I put a little bit of fleam. I mean, just a real little bit, because I want it to cut fast, but I wanted it to start. The biggest thing with, Chris, you use hand saws quite a bit and some of the other things, but the biggest thing when you're starting the hand saw, everybody wants to, just dig that thing in there, and it's really, you're almost making it so you're going like this a little bit and taking all the weight off of that toe when you're starting, and then it's not so bad even if you don't have the flame introduced. So I think you're right, Chris. They do use hook, and on the bandsaw blades, I think it's hook too that they refer to it more. Yeah, once you bed those teeth, we had a couple people in class that we had to help with the bedding of the teeth where it was dug in so bad we had to start it over. And once you get the feel of it, I mean, it's just like starting it, no big deal. The other thing that we did while I was there is we took a couple of saws, these two saws, and if you look, this one used to be as long as this one. This one was given to me, I don't even remember by who anymore. And what we ended up doing is we took the end off because it tapered way down and did what they call alligatoring, and it was so thin down to the end you couldn't really use it, and it did a lot of wobbling when you were doing. So we turned this and this D95 into just a panel saw, which is generally anything 18 inches or less. I mean, these are, I think, a little longer than what would be considered a panel saw, but that was kind of cool. All it was, and then I took what we had for the ends and I kept those, and I'm gonna make scratch stock for making beads and little decorations on stuff. So I mean, there's no reason to get rid of it. The stuff on it, the steel in these older saws is still better than the stuff you're getting now. So if they're bending when you're trying to cut, yeah, old saws are great for scratch stock. If they're bending when you're trying to cut, like if you're cutting down and it's bending out on you, usually it's because it's binding. Either you're, when you're slamming it through, it's hitting, and then you're going off to the side. It could be that there's not enough rake. You could be twisting it a little bit when you're going through, like instead of going straight, you could be coming off this way. Some of that could help a little bit. Let the saw do the work is the biggest thing with that. If you're horsing it, it's going to bend. Oh yeah, Dad mentioned that we're going down to the woodworking show in Milwaukee, and part of it is I want to go down and check out some of the templates for the router bowls. So. Although the Home Depot handsaw will make a lot of people timid of using handsaws. That and a good sharp saw is a world of difference. There's a huge difference in using a saw that's sharp and a saw that's extremely sharp. I mean, the saw that I've been holding up is a crosscut saw, and since I've been using it before, I thought it was okay. I mean, it cut all right and everything. But once I sharpened it and I really put it to the wood when I knew how to sharpen it right, you joint the edge, you shape them all, you joint it again, and you really sharpen it. You introduce that flame and one last little thing through. it's a world of difference. I mean, when you have one that's hand sharpened compared to machine sharpened, it's a world of difference, and you won't be as afraid of them anymore. So yeah, the woodworking show down in Milwaukee, we want to go down, and we have a show for the guild that I'm in up in Green Bay, and it's more of a, you can sell your own stuff and kind of to get people into woodworking and interested in joining the guild. And I want to do router bowls for there, like the trays, when you use the router to make the trays on there. And oh, we just got another ad. Yeah, it's about that time, about a half hour in. I'm gonna let the ads run out for you guys and stick these saws in a sawtail quick. Chris makes a good point. Before you try to hand sharpen a saw, make sure that it's not hardened. My Japanese saw on the wall, they make files to sharpen Japanese blades. I know I wouldn't attempt to sharpen that one. A gentleman brought a large bow saw, and he wanted to sharpen that, but it was actually a hardened blade, and those will not, harden. If it makes like a bluish or a blackish color on the teeth, you're going to wear out your file before you wear out and it's not going to sharpen correctly anyway. Any of the older distance saws, Atkins, I can't remember some of the other names, but I know that the ones that I have are mainly Distant and Atkins. And those older saws, and one way he told me to take a look at it, I mean, is the more, like you see this one has the wheat carving in the handle, a little paint on it, but, and it's actually more formed. The more boxy the handle is, the newer it usually is too. So, I mean, some of the older stuff has got better steel, it's not hardened. It's taper ground, so you're thicker at the bottom than you are at the top, so you have less problem binding in the cut as well. And I don't know of a saw manufacturer today that actually makes a saw that way. It's like learning how to walk. It's not too bad actually. I've been incorporating a little bit of it here and there as I go, and the more I go, the more fun it is to do. So. Yeah, the vintage stuff is a lot better, so. Well, I have two things left to talk about here. The one is the show in Milwaukee. We are going down there. My dad mentioned that before. And we're going to try to pick up some templates for making router bowls. I know CMT has it, Freud has them, Eagle America has them. Oh gosh, who else am I even thinking of here? Peachtree, Woodline. Yep, Woodline has them too. They all have those. They're like router bits, basically formed for making the bottom of a bowl. And I want to make a bunch of those trays, one like a Christmas tree and a ghost, and they have different holiday themes and a ton of different stuff. I'm only going to pick up one or two templates, and I'm going to try to make some of my own templates and make some of those trays to sell at the show. And I'm thinking of doing saw sharpening at the show for people that are in the guild. I'll sharpen a saw while they're there, so that's a possibility. Depends on how much time I got between now and then, and how many files I can find too. So. The other thing is, since I was up by Mike, I did change the way I do some sharpening of my chisels and my plane blades. For a long time, the only thing I ever used was oil stones. I still use my oil stones, but I use my oil stones more for shaping the blades. I don't want to go fast with it, and I'll use the coarser grits and the oil stones for shaping them, and I like doing it. But I actually switched over to, what is it? I got 600 up to 2,000 grit sandpaper on two different, wet dry sandpaper on two different sides of a sheet of plate glass that I had sitting around. And it's fast, and I'm happy with it. And I've got some actually sharper blades than I had before. I do have some ceramic stones that don't require any lubrication at all that I'm playing with. I'm happy with them too. I'll probably give some example later on. about how that works. I suppose I've got a Gorilla Glue prize pack giveaway here yet too. A little pick a winner. Dave, we'll be sending you Def Mize. We'll be sending a Gorilla Glue prize pack your way. Alright, so we got the last of the prizes. I think I'm going to cut the recording for now, and if anybody else got anything to talk about, I'll still be online for a little while I clean up my saws and a few things otherwise. So, good seeing everybody.